I'm just going to move these in a little. Alright, now I'm going to do an attach. So we have one piece of geometry. Now before I do a mirror, I'm going to actually texture that piece up. That way I don't have to do two UV texturing. If I do one and then do the mirror, it'll all be good. Save us a bit of time. Alright, so let's open up our material here and assign that lamp texture. Okay, let's throw an unwrap UVW down and open up our UV editor. Again, I'm just going to move my model over a bit so I can see what's going on. Throw down that, make sure our texture is selected here and so we can see it in the background. Let's scale this down in one direction first and then scale it all down. And it's simply a matter of overlaying those UVs on top of the original texture. I may scale it down just a little bit more. I'd prefer to have the UV slightly inside the texture as opposed to outside. So scaling it down a little smaller than it probably should be is will never hurt. I'm also just scaling it up in one direction as opposed to all directions at the same time. I do that just by holding down the shift key and max with my scale tool here. Make sure you release the scale tool before you release the shift key, otherwise it'll jump back to the way it was. That's what happened just then. So release the scale key, release the mouse button, then release the shift key. If you release the shift key before you release the mouse button, it'll forget that scaling and jump back to the way it was. Okay, that looks fine. Let's just move those pieces now back to the base. We'll jump into our side viewport here for this. Let's move that back. No, I think it's actually on the base here, the flat part of the base that attaches to. Just going to double check that in the 3D viewport here. And it is. I actually think a bit more depth on that would be good. We could do that a few ways. We can either jump back into our extrude here to do it, but I'm just going to do it with the scale command. It's quicker and easier. Just going to scale it up a little bit. I just want a bit more depth on it. Make sure it does intersect that base there. That should be good. Okay, let's jump into our front viewport. Again, hold down the shift key and max and drag a copy over. And again, we're going to use the mirror tool. We're going to mirror it in the X direction though. Okay. Yeah, I like Max's UV layout as well. The UV editor is really good. I had a question a few weeks ago from a guy, I can't remember who it was now, asking me if there are any scripts, I think, that I would have recommended for Max. And there was one I used to use a lot, which was a UVing script. I can't remember exactly what it's called now, but if you go to scriptspot.com, I think it is, and search for UV mapping, it'll be the most downloaded script. And that was because in the older versions of Max, we're talking maybe 2009 sort of time. So Max 2009, the UV mapping was a bit fiddly, and so this tool, this script used to be really helpful, but Autodesk built a lot of those functions into the new UV tool now, so you don't really need to download a separate script. And that was really the only script I recommended anyone download. I don't generally use scripts in my work. It's always better if you not have to rely on a script to do something for you in 3D. If you do it by hand or do it yourself, you're going to learn a lot more to begin with, and you don't have to rely on a third party to create something for you to make something. So that was my main reasoning for not having to don't rely on scripts too much. But this UV script was very good. But like I said, since Max, I think it was about 2014, they really improved the UV editor and added a lot of functionality to it. So you don't really need a third-party script anymore. Thank you for hosting, Galen, if you're around. Again, thank all you guys that do auto-host my channel. I really do appreciate it. And I noticed I picked up some new followers to my Twitch channel. So thank you guys as well. You obviously followed when I wasn't streaming. So thank you. I won't call you out just in case you decided that you don't like having your name spoken on stream. I know some people, like I said, just like to watch the stream and they don't want to interact with me or anything, and some people feel uncomfortable if they're called out by name, so I won't do that to you. If you guys would follow me while I'm live, then I will. But if you're following me while I'm not live, then I'm assuming you don't really want me to mention your name, and I won't. Just so we're clear. But thank you guys very much. Like I said, I do appreciate it when you follow me on my Twitch channel. And I do appreciate you guys at AutoHost as well. Okay, I think that's all the detail we really need to put into this piece of geometry. Now, there is a problem I'm seeing here with this back piece. Now, you see this texture here? That's actually the light fitting. Let's go into our material here and have a look at that actual texture we're using for the light fitting. It's this one here. That's actually that piece here from the side piece that's being, because we're just using an image here as our texture map, that's being thrown against that back piece, and that's not right. So that image in the texture there is incorrect. We're going to have to fix that up. Now, again, this could be done in Mari, and we are going to be taking it into Mari. But sometimes it's easier to do these things in Photoshop than even do it in Mari. So let's see if we can't fix this. And I'd like to show you guys other ways to do texturing as well. I know that not everyone wants to use Mari, even though, like I say, they have a free version, an indie version I think they call it, you can download and use for free. You just can't create anything commercial with it. But still, some people don't want to use Mari, which is fair enough. A lot of guys use Photoshop to do texturing, and so do I. So let's do it in Photoshop. Let's just open up Photoshop here. We already have our texture loaded. So we need to get rid of this part of the texture here on this base section. So I'm going to start by, I don't need the top of the texture. I'm going to crop it here. I'm going to save this texture out as a separate texture anyway. Pull in a bit. Now, I'm going to, where am I going to do this? I'm going to pull in a ruler line here so we go around about the center line. I'm going to jump back into Max so I can see how much we need to actually take out here. We need to take it out to just past where that image is. So back in Photoshop, I know if I move this, my ruler lines here till it's just about there, and pull out another one to just about there. So long as we fix it through here, we don't have to worry about the middle. It'll be fine, because we're not going to see past the edges here. We're not going to see into the middle. So we need to fix this bit up through here. And I think the easiest way to do that is going to be, this is a weird texture because of these lines happening in the background. Let's work on the outside border first, I think. Let's grab that. I'm just going to copy and paste that in, a copy of that line. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Well, just to off center actually, because it's not completely straight. So I'm going to turn it just off 90 degrees. We're going to move that up. I'm going to rotate it a little bit more so it fits a little better. I'm judging it by the top line here, the edge of the texture. Needs to go around just a little bit more. Going to turn it off and on so I can see what's going on in the background there. I'm going to duplicate that layer and drag it all the way over to here. I'm just going to get my eraser tool and erase with a smaller brush than that. Erase this half of it. I'm going to select those two and I'm going to merge those two layers together. So we only have one layer there now. Now, I'm going to copy a section through here as wide as I can. Make sure you're on the bottom layer to do that, otherwise you're not going to be copying anything. I'm going to paste that in. I'm actually going to place that underneath of that layer we just made at the top. I'm going to move that up. Yeah, normally I'd say rotate that to give you a shadow under here, but we can't do that because otherwise these lines have to stay vertical. So we're going to have to... I'm going to erase just this edge over here. Pull in a bit here. Again, I'm just using my mouse. You can use a Wacom tablet. I have my Wacom, but sometimes it's just easier for me to use a mouse. Remember, we don't have to worry about anything between these two lines because it's not going to be seen on the model. So we only have to worry about everything outside of the line here. Those two lines either side, nothing in the middle. We just have to make sure it blends okay through here. You don't have to worry about blending it in there. Again, I'm going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to do a transform and do a flip horizontal. Hold down my shift key and drag across. Okay. Gonna have to blend it a bit better through here. So I'm again just using my eraser tool. I'm gonna erase that out just through there. I'm going to select both of those and merge those layers as well. Alright, now I'm going to go back to my base layer. Use the lasso selection tool here. I'm just going to grab, so I'm going to use the magnetic tool, I think, a polygonal lasso tool actually. I'm going to copy a small section through here. So I'm going to copy that, move back up to the top. We can deselect now. I'm going to paste that in, rotate it around. Going to fake our shadow up through here. I don't like zooming in too close with small texture like this because you can see you start getting this pixelation because you're zoomed up very close to a very small texture. I don't like that. I find it distracting, so I like to pull out until that disappears. Again, we're going to duplicate that layer. Oh, hang on. Undo. Delete it instead of duplicate. Duplicate. I'm going to just hold down the shift key and pull like a copy of that over. I'm just going to use my arrow keys to position it correctly. That should be good enough for what we need. And I just wanted to add a bit of shadowing underneath of there to better match the sides. So again, we're not worrying about the middle because we're not going to see it. We're not even worrying about the outside here because we're not going to see it. I'm going to save this texture. It's going to save it as a JPEG because I'm going to be working probably in JPEG when I bring my texture maps into the Unreal Engine. Again, just because JPEG is the smallest file size, I have used Targa, and I used to use Targa with Unreal. I still must check whether Epic still recommends you use Targa or not. But for this, we're going to use JPEG. I'm just going to call this one wall light underscore fix and text. That sounds good. I'm still going to use minimum compression, so that's called maximum and max. So small file size is the maximum compression, larger file is minimum compression. It's confusing because Macs call it maximum, but it's minimum. So we'll save that out. Jump back into Max here. I'm just going to pull that new material into our stack here. The wall text, this one here. Plug that into our diffuse channel, make sure we turn on shaded and realistic. Now I think this is already a separate piece, it is. Just going to do an unwrap. I want to see what the UVs are like on this piece of geometry. Okay, it's just a flattened UV island. Let's jump into our material editor here and let's assign this new material we just made in Max there. Throw down an unwrap. I had to delete the previous unwrap because if you change a texture after you put an unwrap on, you can't select that new texture in your unwrap. You have to delete that unwrap, put down a new unwrap, and then you can select your texture. In the editor here, select it up here. If I had not put a new unwrap down, I wouldn't be able to select the new texture we just assigned. Okay, let's select all of our UVs here. And scale it up. And that's just a question of lining it all up again. I could have avoided doing this if I'd made the new texture the same size as the old texture, but it'd be wasteful because we don't need a really tall texture for a small piece at the base. I'm going to pull that down a little bit more. I'm going to move that over and check our texture here in the viewport. And you can see now that we've fixed up that problem we had with the light fitting showing through on the old texture, but we've still kept it looking the same, relatively the same. Just having a look here. I might just pull these down a little bit. So again, I'm going to turn off whole object mode, just go into vertex mode here. Select just those verts through the middle, hold down the shift key. Actually, I'm just going to select these ones. Try that first. Actually, I think what I'll do here is I'm going to line these up a little better. Because we're still working with the low polygon model, it's really easy for us to line our UVs up. So it's always do it on the low poly before you start working with the high poly version. And do the same here. I'm just going to hold down the shift key to constrain it in one direction. I'm looking at my models as I'm adjusting my UVs here. I think that should probably be okay. I'm just going to move this one over a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to turn off my map seams again because I really don't like those green lines that it throws around. Now, I think what we may do is I'm just going to jump quickly back into Photoshop. Just looking at our decorative pieces there, these swirls. See, there's two ways we could. I don't like the fact that we can see the texture behind the swirl here. Now we could either fix that in the texture in Photoshop, or we can fix it in the swirl itself. Let's try doing it in the swirl and we'll go from there. By swirl I mean these little, decorative pieces here we created. I'm just going to select both of these. Go into my front viewport here. Scale them down a little. May even move this one up a little. Let's pull back and have a look at that. I may just remove it from the bottom here. The top one's covering it up okay, but I just still see some of the background there. So we'll do both. We've adjusted the geometry in Max. We're also going to just quickly jump into Photoshop and fix that texture up. Just before I do that, guys, I'm going to take a quick break. I want to grab a fresh coffee. This one's gone cold. Sometimes I forget it's there when I'm working. We'll be back in just a few minutes. I'll grab a coffee and I'll leave you with my Be Right Back screen so you can listen to some music while I'm gone, even though I know you're listening to music in the background now. I will be back in just a few minutes, guys. I'll grab a fresh coffee and I will see you soon. So back in just a couple of minutes. Okay. So let's just fix that problem we're having with that, seeing this decoration in the background behind our geometry. We changed our geometry a little bit to better fit this our texture map. But we're going to change the texture map now to fit the added geometry we just added. And it should be quite easy to do, hopefully. We don't need to cover the entire geometry. It's only through here I'm seeing it. But to fix that, I'm going to again just make a copy. Again, I'm going to make sure you're on your base layer here. And I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to move that up and over. Make sure it lines up as best I can. Again, blend it together as best I can just by erasing the edges here. I can go quite high. You'll see that I'm not erasing like this where I'm creating a straight line. I'm erasing higher in some spots and lower in others. So when you're trying to blend two materials together, don't sort of go like that on your material that you're blending in. Don't erase in a straight line. Erase, if I can turn that off, you can see the way I've erased it here. I haven't erased in a straight line. I've erased by going, up and down in bits and pieces here. You'll get a better blend doing it that way than trying to do it with a straight line. So just again, whenever you're doing a blend of materials, you're trying to blend two materials together by erasing one. Don't erase in a straight line. Let's duplicate that material and move it over to the other side. Again, let's save our texture map here. I'm just going to save over the version we created before. And that way Max should realise we've updated our texture map. Did I place those in the wrong spot? Looks like I may have. Yeah, I did. Let's move them over a little bit more. And let's erase the top just through here. Even though these are going to be covered up by our geometry, I'm just going to blend them in a bit better. I'll do the same with this one on the opposite side.
I'm sick of hearing the same story. Tales of another time.
Let's save our texture map again.
Encourage yourself, lose your strength. Get lost in between the lines.
Jump back into Max. Okay, now I'm just looking at that problem we're having there. I think that might be to do with the UVs. I'm just going to check that again.
Your words will never die. I hear them resonate through my mind.
I think it's through here.
Your words will never die.
I'm just moving my UV so we can get a straighter line through there. It's not quite so distorted as it was before. So that's covered up that bit of the texture we were seeing in the background where we duplicated that decorative piece here.
Admitting to all of your crimes.
Let's just pull back a bit on our model here and have a look.
You buried yourself.
I think that should be okay. Again, this is our low reg, low poly mesh here that we're working with. So let's say we've put the detail in that we want now. We've got our low poly mesh here, but we've got these problems with these edges here being stretched. And you can see it more pronounced here on the inside of those decorative pieces. We need to fix that up. So before we do that, let's start making this one piece of geometry. So I'm going to put down an edit poly. And I'm just going to start attaching these different pieces together. Pretty sure I have them all now. My mouse doesn't change when I move over anything, so I know I have all the pieces attached together. Again, you can do an attached list here. You've got to be careful with Max with attached lists though, because it can mess up your materials. I always prefer to do it by hand. Might take a little longer, but if Max messes your materials up, it's going to take 3 times as long to fix it. So we have our model here all attached together. There's our low mesh, low poly model attached. We need to fix those textures up. Before we can do that though, at the moment I'm using a texture here, a texture here, a texture for the base. That's like 3 textures, even though 2 of them are the same. It's still 2 textures that are unnecessary. The fewer the number of textures that you use on a game model, the less draw calls the engine has to use, therefore the faster the engine can work. So too many draw calls slows down the engine and therefore it makes your frame rate drop. So you want to try and reduce the amount of draw calls that the engine has to work on as much as you can, just so that you keep your frame rate really high. And a good example is this light fitting here. Like I say, at the moment we're using probably at least 2 textures. We really should only be using 1 texture for something, an object like this. And we can fix that quite easily by doing a render to texture, which is what we're going to do now. So we have our model all attached together. I'm just going to collapse my stack. So we're back to our base edit poly. Now I'm going to throw down an unwrap UVW. Now you've seen me do a render to texture before. I'm going to be doing the same thing. Make sure my map channel is set to channel 2. You can just move your UVs across. It doesn't matter really. You can hit a band and it wouldn't make any difference. We're going to open up our UVW editor. We're going to select everything. So we're selecting all of our UV shells there. We're going to do a flatten mapping. Leaving the default values here is fine. Alright. So we've changed to map channel 2. We've done a flatten mapping in map channel 2, so we still have our original UVs intact. Now we're going to do a render to texture. So render to texture. Where are we? Come on, Max. We're going to use map channel 2, which is the one we just created. We're going to add a diffuse map. That's what we're going to be rendering out. Let's just set our path here. We're going to call this one Deco. I'm going to name it completely differently from the other textures. Deco sconce, because it's actually a wall sconce. Call it color to match the naming convention I'm using in Unreal. I may leave it as a target file. I've been using PNGs when I've been exporting from Substance Painter. We'll leave it as a target file for now. We can do a conversion later on. 24-bit is fine because I'm not using any alpha information here. Now for the size, let's try it at 512. Because again, I think now we are creating a square texture here instead as opposed to a 256 by 512. But remember, we're incorporating 2 separate texture maps now, so the layout is a little different, so we will go 512 by 512. Let's render that out. Just continue if Max complains here. It just means that you haven't told it where you want it to put it. Okay, we can close that down. Let's set up our shader for that new texture. So standard and a bitmap. And it's called Deco Sconce Color, that's the one there. Can show shaded, show realistic. Now I'm going to assign that texture that we just rendered out to the model. It'll mess the UVs up. The texture won't look right, but we'll do it anyway. We're going to go into our Utilities tab and go into our channel info. And we're going to copy the UVs from channel 2 into channel 1. And you see it brings our texture back. Now we can delete channel 2. So that basically we've reduced our texture draw calls to 1 because we're not using 2 textures now. And that's just going to help the engine to handle the model, to run as quickly as it can. Now I want to fix up these stretchings that's happening, so the easiest way for me to do that is going to be to take this model into Mari, which is what I'm going to do now. Now by all means you don't have to use a 3D paint program to do this. You could use an unwrap, select these side pieces and do it manually through the UVW editor. You know me though guys, like I was telling you guys the other day, UVW mapping is one of the least, is the part of 3D modeling I like least. Like I love doing 3D and love modeling, love texturing, but doing the UV mapping is probably the worst part of it all. And if I can avoid doing that as much as possible, then I will. And the best way for me to avoid doing that is, instead of doing it by hand in the UV editor, is to take this into Mari and paint them out. And that's again why I like using a 3D paint program to do my texturing work, because it saves me a lot of work and a lot of time. That's what we're going to do. So let's export this model. And again, I'm going to export it as an OBJ, but Mari will take FBX. I just like to work in OBJ because it's more universal, used by more programs. And you can sometimes have problems with FBX between different programs because there's different versions of FBX as well. We're going to call this one Deco Sconce. I'm also going to name my object up here Deco Sconce. It just keeps everything the same. So our texture and our model is called the same thing. I'm just going to save my Max file here as well. As you know, I don't trust Max. I don't trust any program not to crash. Okay, let's jump into Mari. I've already got Mari open, so let's create a new program, a new project I should say. And we're going to call it Deco Sconce. We're going to load up that model we just exported. Oh, I think I went to the wrong directory. That one right there. I'm just going to change my root path. This is just a temporary directory from my SSD drive to my hard drive. We're going to create, even though we have created a texture map, I'm just going to hit create here, and we're going to work at 512, which is the size of our texture map. It should be good. Let's go OK. Just give Mari a minute to think about it, what's going on. Okay. Now again, Mari defaults to using this glossy shaded view, and I don't like that when I'm painting up models, so I always take it back just to flat shaded. Again, in our project here we have edge masking turned on. That's what that red shading is, just for people that may have forgotten what it is. You see we can't see our texture though, so let's fix that. Let's import into layer stack. Again, we're going to jump back to our folder here. We're going to find that texture we just saved out. Now again, Mari defaults to looking for TIFF files. So just pop a star in here, and we'll just delete that template line, and you'll see all the textures that are in that folder. That's our texture map right there, so let's import that. You see how textures pop back in, which is good. Now I'm going to keep edge masking on because I don't want to accidentally overpaint the front of the model here. Let's start with these side pieces. Now I don't have, we've rendered this texture out, but I'm not going to use that for our to fix up our model. I'm going to use the original texture, so I'm going to import that original light texture that the model was using. This one here. I'm going to create a new layer, because remember, always work with the new layer, that way if you make a mistake you can easily delete that layer. I'm going to drag that texture in. I'm going to hold Control and Shift and scale that up. I'm going to rotate it around a little bit as well. Maybe scale it up a bit more. I press the Alt key so I can see the texture, the model, and get rid of the texture. Let me scale it down a little bit. Alright, let's start painting in these sides here. No, I just keep moving my texture up as I paint because I don't have a really large I'll just undo that for a minute. I don't have a really large part of the plain metal here for me to work with. I can work with these actually, it may be better.